Welcome to DS Trucks. In today's video, I want to talk about the truth behind driving the F450 daily. Is it harder? Is it a compromise? Is it, you know, any real drawback to driving this truck? And the reason I want to talk about this topic is I was watching another prominent YouTuber that goes by the name of PD Diesel. I watch this guy's channel all the time. And I don't know, something about that guy when he's talking and he's driving and pointing the camera out the window. He's got a real smooth way of talking. And I don't know, I could just sit there and just watch an entire video of him talking about, torque and gear ratios. Or I think he's got a repair shop and a hot shot operation going. But he made a video talking about why he doesn't have a dually, and if he were to get a dually, which one he would get. He said he'd get a 23 plus F450, and that's an interesting topic for me. It got me thinking, like, what are really the pros and cons of driving this truck? Now, when I got this truck, the reason I wanted this is because of a channel called Big Truck Big RV. He was always showing that 450 that he has. He had a 17 ruby red F450. Now he's got like a white limited, I think. But that is how I even knew this truck existed, because it's kind of an Easter egg of a truck. Not everybody knows about these. Unless you know, you know. And it's a custom ordered truck. It's a really weird kind of a truck as well, because it carries so many cab chassis features, but it carries the rating of a normal pickup truck, so it puts you in an interesting category. Don't really have that much payload like you would think. Actually, honestly, a 350 dually has more, but you still got a good amount of usable payload. You get the hot rod engines, compared to cab chassis, to get the rated versions of it. In our case, we got the high output, but even the standard output is pretty powerful motor, and it is able to be that family vehicle or that daily vehicle and still have so much work worthiness. I think that this truck is really geared to like RV guys, but everything about it is able to translate to a work environment. The gear ratio being a 430 gear ratio, the commercial brakes, the big brakes that are in the front and the rear of this truck, you get an oversized brake rotor that you do not get with any other combination. That's a feature that cannot reasonably be added to the vehicle and just add so much value. Now, in our case, what I've been finding is the tires and the weights, especially when we put about 2 tons of weight in the bed of the truck on a regular basis, it'll push it around. The weight, it'll slide around, and especially when in inconsistent weather. But what I found is when we put this 1,000-pound snowplow on the front of it, those larger oversized brakes really come in handy, because now with the big plow on the front, it just bites when it stops. It doesn't have the sliding or anything. So whenever I'm running salt in it, I just put the plow on it as well, because it can just stop so much better. One time I was hauling a skid steer with some snow equipment on it, and the brakes didn't work on the trailer, and I went out and kind of tested the brakes and wanted to see if the thing would stop, and sure enough, the thing was stopping on a dime. And I was like, okay, well, I can still work. It's a snow emergency. I don't want to not show up with the skid steer, because I don't have trailer brakes. But I realize now, because that plow is on the front, you're getting so much weight. 1,000 pounds being that far off the front end, you're getting so much extra weight that this thing will stop some weight in some bad weather just because the plow is on. So I'm always running a plow in bad weather. But what are really the negatives of driving such a big truck? I mean, there are a few. And interestingly enough, it's not the dually width. You would think, oh, those extra wheels, they're big, they're sticking out. But they're not really that big of a problem at the end of the day. Like, if you were to take a look at the profile of this, you will find that really doesn't stick out more than the mirror. So there's not a whole lot of things that I really can't do with this truck being dually that I couldn't do with any other pickup truck. And with the wide track front axle, having a higher degree of maneuverability or turning radius, kind of alleviates a lot of the issues that you would have with a longer wheelbase, being that you can just wait until you are further out in a turn, like you got a semi truck or something. They wait and they turn a little later because they got a pretty good turning radius as well. But you turn the wheel a little bit later and you really gain all that maneuverability back. It pulls a trailer real nice because of its ability to have such a tighter turning radius. It's a little bit harder on the tires. They do get choppy, especially the Continentals. But it's pretty interesting that the truck is quite maneuverable, despite having a dually. And the bigger width is not really an issue. I mean, look at how much do I really lose when you consider that I'm not really sticking out that far more than the running board. So the fear of the dually and the hips and all that, not a big deal. I mean, I'm plowing snow with this thing and I haven't had any casualties with the fender flares. So I don't find that becoming an issue, like the width of the vehicle. Now, maybe for other vehicles, when they are driving next to me, they kind of tend to position their vehicle further from this one when they see it. I don't know if that's something in their own mind that makes them feel like they have to be extra far away from this truck whenever it's on the road. But the dually is just way more beneficial than it could ever be negative as far as its size. Now, there's a long bed. He picked up a long bed 350 right over there. Pretty sweet setup. But you see a lot of guys with the same salt spreader with a single rear wheel. But I can tell you that having this amount of weight, 2 tons, and a lot of the weight, when you look, we are using those steps all the time when I'm working the truck. A lot of the weight ends up getting carried kind of high up. So whenever I get these trucks, I try to get the camper certification as well as whatever else, which gives you like a oversized sway bar. It also helps with getting out too. So useful. It also gives you the oversized rear sway bar down there. And I'm running a flap to keep the salt off the truck. But still, hauling that kind of weight up high like that, you would lose a ton of stability. But the dually is just something that, like I say, it's more of a positive than it could ever be a negative. So the guy next door drives a Silver long bed Superduty, and I get a little jealous every time I see him. Like, man, that thing is sweet. Even though, let's see if I can get out of here. Even though my truck is a little better, his is kind of cool too. I mean, it's a long bed 350. So I mean, I kind of like it. You know, that's a nice piece. But again, I wouldn't want to have to deal with a long bed if I didn't have the wide track. I don't know. I mean, as useful as the long beds are, the wide track is freaking helpful as ever. We're going backwards. That's a cool 150 parked over there. So as far as the dually, not really too much of an issue. I'm gonna check the mail real fast. All right, 1 second. Okay, so I'm into this video like 9 minutes and I still haven't really said what the potential drawbacks could really be for, you know, why would I tell you not to buy a 450? So I think PD Diesel was saying something along the lines of, you know, if you don't need it, then you shouldn't really go for it, which I agree 100%. Like, I think it is a little bit of a tragedy, or how do you say that, for the guys who buy the 450s and never tow anything, that ain't cool. If you're not going to tow nothing ever, then maybe don't. Now, for me, I'm going to be towing 16,000 pounds, rated trailer. You could do that with another vehicle. The 350 gas engine that I have does it okay. I mean, not as good, obviously, but it does it okay. It will do it. But there's times where, I don't know, the towing gets out of hand. Like if we're doing concrete, there's been times where that trailer's overloaded and you're really tapping the power of this truck, and you're tapping the systems, you're tapping into the brake ability and all that. It does get work. The tongue weight. The thing about the 450 is you can put some tongue weight. Now, when you're doing construction, you don't always get to the max towing of the, although you do sometimes get to the max, quite often get to the max towing of the trailers, but you oftentimes end up with a lot of tongue weight, and this truck just being long and having a big old engine in the front, far away from the hitch, it gives you the ability to just run some heavy tongue weights that you just can't run with a single rear wheel gas truck. So construction, good piece to have for construction, real good piece. Now, the one thing that I can say is it would be better to have that focused machine, that cab chassis, dump body, whatever type of truck. It is better at the end of the day. But this is really good at doing that as well. Like, I can put my tools in the bed with my rolling Milwaukee boxes, and then I can also hitch my trailer and put machine in the trailer and all that stuff, and it'll do that type of a job much better than a single rear wheel. Much more confident, safer, better braking, just better overall. The couple things I can say, the cons, if I'm trying to tell you not to get a 450, why wouldn't you want one? Well, the drivability of the 450, the way that it takes bumps, probably isn't that bad if you didn't have a snowplow prep. I do have a snowplow prep, which makes it ride a little rougher in the front end, but it's nice with the plow on it. My wife doesn't really like to ride in this truck. The rear end is a little rougher than a Super Duty, a standard Super Duty single rear wheel. But it's not that much different. I mean, you can kind of play with the air pressures and stuff a little bit to get a little nicer ride. But that gear ratio, right now, we're going 70 miles an hour at 2,000 RPM. That ain't the best if you're going to be putting on a lot of miles, especially unloaded. Right now, we're technically loaded. We got a 1,000-pound plow in the front, big old wind dam. So, I mean, we're working it. But if you're just driving empty and you always cruising 2,000 RPM and the engine is just never really lugged or working, not the best situation. So engine speed, I think for a guy that's really just watching that kind of stuff, he's gonna be looking like, why am I always driving around so wound up at 2,000 RPM? Now the 10-speed did get a couple more RPM points down for the final drive ratio, but if we were to cruise 80, we'd be at about 2250 RPM, I think. The 6.7 though, it runs smooth enough and it runs good enough, so it's not really a factor. Like, it's not like I know that it's running 2,000 RPM unless I look down at it. Then I'm made aware that I'm just spinning this diesel engine. A diesel engine might be happier especially if it's not loaded. Ooh, this guy's throwing stuff off his truck. A diesel engine might be happier, especially unloaded. He's going 80 miles an hour throwing stuff. So yeah, the diesel engine is going to be happier if you're able to get the RPMs down just a little bit, especially unloaded. Now, once you're loaded, this thing is just perfect. Like, we will load this thing down with, 16,000 pound load in the bed. We'll put 2 tons in the bed and a 16,000 pound load on the hitch. We'll load this thing down and it just still performs well. Like, it does get a little bit bouncy. The rear suspension, keep in mind, is not that different from a 350 dually. So it leaves a little bit to be desired in the rear suspension. And then another con to this truck, I guess if you can call it a con, is the commercial tires can be a little bit annoying because you can't go to your normal tire place. That being said, once you get into a commercial tire shop, the service is good. Like, probably better, a little more professional, dare I say. Well, at least around here, there's a real good commercial tire shop that you go in there and they're like, oh, 19.5s. Let's get some service for this guy. And they're not terribly expensive tires, and they're just more serious tires. I mean, you're not gonna get the coolest tires out there like the Wrangler Duratrax and whatever new tread patterns out by Toyo or all that. You're not gonna get that unless you buy a whole new rim. But you do get like professional, heavy duty, good running, good working tires that can go to 19.5. So there's options out there that are nice. But they're just not the standard tires that you see a lot of information on social media about. You're gonna have to get a tire that is just not trendy, period. But there's options out there for these wheels. But that's kind of the main 2 cons. I mean, as far as the hips being bigger and being in the way, if you were to park this vehicle in a parking spot and those hips were next to someone's door, I would imagine they could be an issue. I usually back into the spot, and I do park further away from obstacles. There's the issue maybe with drive-thrus, although I don't go through fast food, so I don't know. I feel that you should be able to go through fast food with this. I know I can go through the bank teller with it without getting stuck at all, and the bank ATM is big enough. The bank ATM is big enough where I could, I could fit through there, no problem. But yeah, all in all, the performance on this thing has been great. Happy with it. The only thing I would say is if I was gonna put myself in a position to not be working or towing a lot, I'd get a 150, and I would not have to have this level of expense and this level. If I were just gonna say in my company I'm taking a position of management only, I'd do a 150, because then I can zip around with like a power boost or an eco boost or something, maybe even a power boost, and just be efficient, have like all that on-demand power, pro power on board stuff for office work, and then like just be able to be mobile. If I'm saying, hey, I'm not touching work, I'm not towing trailers and all that, this might be a good piece to give to like a manager, project manager type guy, or an operative that is doing work and managing. I don't know if that'd be a good position, or if that type of position is customary in the industry. I know when I sold my other truck, there were a few guys that were trying to purchase the 450 just for their main operative that would go around and would work and be a in the field type of a guy. I did meet a guy who was working for a big property management company, and he showed me his 550. It was a cab chassis truck, but it had all the drawers and everything all fancy, and it had the body on it, all aluminum. And I think the body was like 30 grand or something by itself, or maybe more. And he had the 550 Lariat, but it was derated, I believe. It had the detuned 6.7 on it, and I thought it was sweet. I kind of was a little bit jealous, but then again, I kind of figured a way to make myself with this truck without all that extra cost and still having a cooler engine and all that. I mean, I just put the rolling Milwaukee boxes inside of the bed and roll like that. Like, it's not that much different compared to him having all his boxes fixed to the vehicle. So, I don't know. But, yeah, the real cons for the truck, and here we are at the end of 20 minutes, is the gearing. If you ain't towing, that gearing can get a little bit annoying. The MPG might get a little funky too, although not too big a deal with the diesel. The diesels are they're a little more reliant on the load than just the engine speed. Although less engine speed will be better, the load also has more of an effect than just the engine speed by itself. So a little more engine speed, if not needed, may be annoying. The commercial tires, honestly, I like the commercial tires, but a little harder to, you might not have the availability, although you might be surprised. There's probably a commercial tire shop near everybody, because commercial tires are everywhere. The tire rotations, they can't be done, so the front tires tend to get chewed up quicker, and they go through their life cycle quicker. But the lifespan of the commercial tires, I don't know, they might be better. I mean, I don't know how bad freaking a set of Duratrax would have been if they were on this application. They'd probably be chewed up even worse. But comment below and let me know what you think. And check out PD Diesel if you haven't already. I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this, have already heard of him or haven't been watching this channel. But real good channel. I enjoy watching him and seeing. I think he's got a shop, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, I want to say I've seen like some teardowns on some 6.7s up in there. But comment below, let me know your thoughts. I gotta go. See you in the next video. My name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. Over and out.